We are being recorded.
Okay, so you already had your opportunity to make a comment about Trump. Uh, Now the meeting is being recorded. So any Trump comments will be recorded. uh, I'm going to go through this meeting because I told people that we would record it and um, so that they could play it back uh, at their leisure. And as I mentioned in my email, I will open another meeting tomorrow for those people that want to discuss things that we're discussing today that may not have been clear just from the recording. And feel free to jump in and um, um, ask a question at any time. This is a very um, casual meeting, and I'm calling from my house. Flagstaff got 3 feet of snow. It was the 10th biggest snowstorm on record, and so I didn't bother to go into school today. But it does mean that you may periodically hear my dogs in the background, but hopefully not. Okay, so starting off, I'm simply going to go through the agenda that I sent out yesterday. We do have our first publication in press. They submitted it last Tuesday, and it might come out in the next issue. But I really want to press people to consider additional publications. Um, so for Scan, I think we ended up with 6 publications, which I would really like to see LepNet at least triple that. So clearly, publications where reviews are done, revisions of tax are done and they use records are obvious, but I'd like to see more synthetic publications. I'd like to see people engage uh, persons that want to actively use LepNet for publication. So Alma Solis is already offered to identify anybody's specimens in the subfamily that she works on, the Acetropinae, a cramid subfamily. It's an aquatic group. Uh, she'd be more than happy to identify your specimens as part of LepNet that she would then use in publications. NSF has um, funded a number of postdocs. One of those is Matthew Nielsen. He's working on a coleus eurytheme, and he needs lots of images. And so, individual collections that want to either engage Matt and take images for him, that would be great. That would go into at least one or more of publications that he's putting out. If people know other individuals that are working on Lepidoptera that can use our images or our occurrence records, it would be great to know about those people. And as I'll mention later on, I really want to get a research working group organized to think about additional publications. Uh, okay, so Catherine can hear me, Stacy can hear me. Great, everybody can hear me. So, yeah, if you have a question, feel free to type it if you don't want to use your mic. Okay, so I do want to go over deliverables, and as I mentioned, I'll be sending deliverables to iDigBio. It will be posted on their website, and then in June, I'll submit an annual report um, to NSF. And for ADBC TCN deliverables, they're fairly basic in that they want to know how many records we've produced that are on iDigBio, and they want to know how many images that we've produced. Now, Since we're still in the first year, it's understandable, especially for the larger institutions, that people are gearing up and getting things set up to start publishing. But I frankly, I would like to see um, um, more institutions putting records on scan. Now, every institution has their own individual story. So, for example, at Kansas State, Greg already had most of the images, and he was primarily looking for funding to georeference everything. And the same is true at Utah. So um, they'd already had records put up. They primarily wanted funding for imaging. And my guess is everybody that was above 100%, they've been putting records in for the last couple of years. And then there's places like Yale and Garrett. I mean, Larry can speak to this, but I'm simply reporting all Lepidoptera specimens. I'm perfectly happy with, especially if there was other funding sources that paid for those records to provide that attribution either in our iDigBio bi-monthly reports or our NSF annual reports. For these bi-monthly reports, I'm not really that concerned. Um, and either is iDigBio, and I don't have a lot of time to really nuance every individual collection in terms of what their status is. I'm also happy to put in narratives of uh, individual efforts beyond uploading records to LepNet or the scan database. They both share the same database. Um, uh, but if you're doing something extra, like I said, I'm happy to put that in either the iDigBio bi-monthly reports or the NSF annual reports. I do want to go over um, and then so in terms of deliverables, there's the basic transcription to have you uploaded a record, and that's all fine and good. But ideally, every record is identified to species and it's georeferenced. And so I will add those in future reports. So, for example, Colorado State um, um, has a really high identification rate, and I think everything is georeferenced, and we'll record those um, in future updates. Now, there are collections that are live versus snapshot, and I just want to mention some of the advantages of having a live collection, and that is when you enter the records, you're linking with the taxonomy tables. So, for example, if you're using Excel, you may type in the wrong species name and nobody will know it. It could actually get batch uploaded to the data portal without being screened. um, and uh, so that's one advantage of having a live collection. Uh, Also, the annotations are live versus delayed. That is especially important when you talk about doing batch georeferencing. And this is especially true if you're entering data in something as simple as Excel. And if you have a really solid IPT like Larry has for EMU, or Norm Johnson has at Ohio State for his homegrown database. That's not really a big deal. It will just take a month or so whenever we refresh the IPT from their sites before we see these annotations taking place. But it still doesn't get at the problem of having a really good solid taxonomy table. And uh, if you have a live collection and you add a taxa that we don't have in our collection, you are adding to the database. If you're using another kind of database and we then need to get your taxonomy updates or tables another way, um, uh, and um, uh, and I haven't received any taxonomy updates from other people that are not using the LepNet data portal. Um, so Larry, are you there?
Yep, just had to
Uh,
unmute my microphone.
oh, okay. Um, so how do we get taxonomy table updates from you that's using Emu?
We can dump you something at whatever frequency you want.
Okay, well let's plan on doing that. Um, we just got about 500,000 Lepidopter records from Jorge Soberon, and we will go through and incorporate all of the taxa from that download. And I think that'll be huge in terms of populating our existing taxonomy table because I think where we're really missing taxa are from the southern part of North America. But it would also be great, Larry, to get um, uh, uh, your your taxonomy table additions as well.
I'll cut you an update.
Okay, that sounds great. Um, um, I'm also serving data to iDigBio and GBIF as well. So I just checked on GBIF a week ago, and generally, a lot of insect collections have not been keeping up with their sending data to GBIF. And I would argue that it really helps your collection to send data to both iDigBio and GBIF. It's more likely to be used as part of data sets for publications. And for those people that do not have a dedicated IPT and they're not actively sending data to GBIF, we can help you out in getting you set up to send data to GBIF as well as iDigBio. And if you have a live collection in our data portal, it's really easy to activate the GBIF. Probably the biggest problem is you need to set something up individually with GBIF. You need to get sponsored and make sure that you're registered. But that really doesn't take uh, very much time. And I really think it's in every collection's best interest to make sure that they're sending updated data to both places. Uh, Paul Jorge is at Kansas, but he is Mexican, and so I think he used to be the executive director, president, whatever, of Canabio. So he has a lot of really good connections with Mexico, and we're making connections with Mexican institutions a number of different ways. Um, Nico Franz is developing partnerships with Mexican collections, and a few other people are as well. And so it's going to be a big um, effort on my part over the next several months to really try to extend connections with Mexican collections. So if you want to help with that, it'd be great to get more people helping out. Um, okay, so one of the disadvantages of using Symbiota as a portal is that, and we know this, and that is the data entry forms are not, uh, well, we can definitely add capabilities to the data entry form. So, for example, they're clearly not as easy as Excel spreadsheets to use. We are going to increase capacity for carrying over not only locality but collector and dates to make it easier for people. We can also set it up to um, have people use an Excel template that has Darwin Core headers to allow you to then to batch upload data, and then ideally once you upload your data to the portal, you get rid of that Excel spreadsheet or you archive it, and then you can annotate and update your data. You can georeference it in the Symbiota portal. And then if you ever want a full copy of it, it's really easy to then download a CSV um, of your data. Uh, okay, images. So we haven't really started um, images yet, although the next slide is going to be LepSnap. So a large part of our imaging program is associated with LepSnap and using smartphones. But before we go there, um, a lot of collections should have high resolution DSLRs in place, and they should be starting to take images. uh, I put in the chat box, if you scroll up, uh, iDigBio should have just corrected their batch image uploading capabilities. And so I put the link to their GitHub site. You need to download that version. And once you download it, and then Kat is going to post the Word document that will walk you through the steps for batch uploading your images to iDigBio. But we really need to have people start uploading images um, um, to iDigBio. And okay, so and then one of the other things that I want to get at least some people to try out is in Select. And Jen, okay, so Jen, and if you want to speak to this, so Jen Zaspel has been pushing this with the UK Natural History Museum, and they're the ones that have developed in Select. And the part of in Select that I want to pursue is the segmentation capacity, and that is the ability to take an image of more than one specimen. What they do is a whole drawer imaging, and then they segment the images and attribute each of the segments to a record that has either been OCR'd or entered in. And so if you're interested in pursuing that, pop me an email and I'll put you in with an InSelect working group. And they've been really open and helpful to help anybody that wants to um, see about incorporating InSelect software in with their workflow. And I'll wait for Jen to finish typing. Okay, Jen, we can have a NPM test this Milwaukee Public Museum. They have a good DSLR set up in addition to the robot. Um, and we're really talking about half drawers and unit trays. So, but if it's a way to cut down on time, I think it's something that we really need to pursue. Okay, so just at the bottom of this, okay, if records and images are not on iBigDigBio, they do not exist. It doesn't matter if you have them on your local computer. And part of this, I think, is a cultural thing that we've just got to um, uh, um, uh, try to have people realize that we need to make the data available as soon as possible, not at the end of the 4 year period, not at the end of the year, but now. Um, okay, so uh, Andre, your mic is on. I'll you just provide people with an update to LepSnap.
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you great.
Great. Okay. Yeah, this is just a very quick update. Wanted to let everyone know where we're at. We're officially in the private beta phase in the sense that people can access the app by invite only. We have 15 private beta participants from the LepNet group already on board with LepSnap who have iPhones. Again, unfortunately, we do not have an Android app ready yet, but it is something that we're building, in the process of building, aiming for that to be up by toward the end of Q1. But right now, the focus is on a couple priorities. The first is to try to get as many training images uploaded to LepSnap as possible. That really provides the nexus for our image recognition system to help jump to the appropriate category when people are publishing new LEP records. So the stats for that I can give in regular updates, starting with this. As of yesterday, we have 11,000 public images, and we have an additional 99,000 plus private/training images in the system, with a total of 110,000. Now, this does not include images that have been published to LepNet yet. This is just in addition to that, because at the moment we are working on completing integration with LepNet, which we hope to complete by the end of this week. Things are going well. We're just in the final testing phase. Once that's done, private beta testers can photograph a LEP and then enter a catalog number that exists already in scan/LepNet, and that will automatically sync the photo and record to put that information to display in LepSnap, as well as submit that photo to the LepNet record. So that is going to complete the cycle for ensuring that the LepSnap phone can be used as a photo publishing device for submitting LepNet records. We're also working with Visipedia on integrating their computer vision technology into LepSnap. It's an ongoing process, but we do have image recognition working quite well now, and we're just working with Grant over at Visipedia to take it to the next level. And the other component that we are going to start very soon is to integrate distribution maps associated with LEP species, starting with some of the macro LEPs, for example, butterflies and swallowtails, to provide a kind of a smart filter for when publishing something that is outside of the known range of that particular species. We can perform an alert, and we also can kind of prioritize the suggestions for what the specimen might be ID-wise based on the location of where that specimen was found. So those are some of the things that we're working on. In terms of category representation, making sure that the goal is that all species and subspecies of North American Lepidoptera are already pre-populated within LepSnap, so that we don't have to add new species as we're entering a record. We can just select from an existing one. And at present, we have just over 40,000 species, all North American LEPs. We haven't focused on worldwide LEPs yet. So I think that we're in pretty good shape. I'm looking forward to getting feedback from the first early testers, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, Andre, if you can see chat box, Jason asks what iOS and/or iPhone model is the minimum required.
Um, they all iPhone models and iOS versions should work. Um, so if there's a problem with a really old iPhone iOS model, it can contact me directly. But we have tested it across all iOS versions, so you shouldn't encounter a problem. Is there particular species that we need more training images for? Well, the short answer is yes for everything. The goal is for the computer vision to kick into gear and start to deliver results that are a little bit more stable in terms of that, or consistent, I should say, in terms of the kind of input photos that users are going to be able to provide. The target is to have a minimum of 30 training examples per species. That would mean across 40,000 species categories right now, we'd have 1.2 million training images. So that might take a while, but I think that we can focus on the macro LEPs and trying to achieve at a minimum of 30 for the most likely encountered species is the top priority. I'm going to next week put together a report of how many training images we have per category, and so at any given time, one would be able to look up by family or by genus or by species or subspecies how many images we have, because that stat will show both publicly viewable, so things that people could count themselves, as well as the private training images that we're just using on the back end to train the neural network. I can work with Neil to provide kind of a target list of training photos that we would love to have first based on certain important groups. So I started training the system on pin specimens of swallowtails, and at some point I'd like to move to sphinx moths and silk moths, for example. But I think that there's a little bit more time that we need to spend on how to communicate what areas we'd really like to focus on in terms of getting some really good seeded training material in LepNet and in LepNet.
Right. So we're working on we're focusing on papilionids, and we can expand to other groups. So the next groups that I wanted to work on were two moth groups, were the Saturniids and the Sphingids. So it's larger moths where there's not that many species that people can take pictures of with their smartphones. And um, uh, oh yeah, well, Catherine, yeah, so Catherine asks, how will LepSnap work with museums not using Symbiota? And I assume it's perfectly fine. That might be a question more for Ben uh, and Andre in terms of the technical part, but it's set up to it's not dependent on Symbiota at all.
Yeah, no, I second that. Other institutions can absolutely participate either by using the iOS device to upload images, and there's also a website version of it for people who want to publish on desktop. And I'll work out with Ben if there's anything we need to do in terms of where photos outside of Symbiota are ultimately stored. They're obviously not going to be published directly to scan until there's like a formal recognition that that's something that can happen. But LepSnap can be used outside of the purview of Symbiota.
Yeah, and so so we get our images from Alaska through your IPT, and your images point to a certain URL. And I think that it would be similar, that we'd figure out a way to get to point to your images, and then I'm assuming you would also like to have your images stored wherever your current images are. And once again, I think that that's something between Ben and Andre that we can figure out. So I would, at the risk of exploding this conversation, um, this is a complete collaboration with Andre and the people that Andre work with, and um, uh, I would encourage people to be completely entrepreneurial about this, and it does not have to restrict itself to Lepidoptera. So, for example, we're working with a national monument here near Flagstaff, and we may, especially if they provide the funding, and that's really what I'm speaking to. Uh, they may want a field guide to their plants uh, and insects for their monument. And if they come up with the money, then Andre said it's possible that we would, for example, he could create a specific part of the app that if you type in Pipe Spring National Monument, you would go there and it would show the vascular plants and the key insect groups that we have images of. So if you can think of ways to expand this, and Andre says yes, I encourage people to think outside the box, think beyond Lepidoptera in this.
Absolutely.
Um, and I don't think you talked about so you didn't mention iNaturalist, did you?
No.
Yeah, so iNaturalist is also talking to Visipedia people about incorporating computer vision within iNaturalist, and so hopefully we'll partner with them. And so one nice thing that would be great to see in the LepSnap app is a little button that would say and post this image and this occurrence to iNaturalist as well.
Exactly. It would be a similar experience as if when we're on Instagram and they wanted to share to Facebook or Twitter. It's just the accounts are linkable and therefore you can publish from one place for the benefit of many. Um, just to optimize data portability, especially if you're a non-naturalist user and you would otherwise be doing the same task twice to contribute to iNaturalist. Our hope eventually is to cut that down to one step.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I've been pretty transparent in telling Andre that I want to use him in a variety of ways. So, for example, there's a group that works on butterflies in Chile, and they have an app that I just think that LepSnap is going to be much better for them. But then using LepSnap as a way of connecting with entomologists in Chile, and we would initially collaborate through LepSnap, but then I'd like to see additional collaboration, sharing records, whatever, with people from other parts of the world.
Absolutely. One point that I forgot to mention is that um, what's coming up next is the moment that we've completed and thoroughly tested the LepNet integration. What I'd like to do is either record live on a Adobe Connect meeting or pre-record the process by which someone can photograph and then enter the catalog number and link up a smartphone photo with an existing Symbiota record. I want to be able to record step by step how that works and make that available for everyone, just so they have a quick visualization of how to use LepSnap to do that. It should be hopefully very intuitive, or the interface should be instructive enough for those to figure it out themselves without the tutorial. But I always prefer to have just a quick video people can watch before they might try to attempt it themselves. So.
Okay. If there aren't any, are there any other questions before we move on? Okay, if there are, we can always come back to this, and Jen is typing. Um, Oh, I just wanted to say, um, as we create these ranges and suitable habitat maps for all the species, we will make them available on Dropbox. And so it'd be great if people wanted to use these maps or these grid files, which are basically spatial data sets. They can use them for their own purposes. It'd be great to get people to comment on some of the products to say your range map or your suitable habitat map is just wrong. You need to do this or that. These oh, so here's a snapshot of my Dropbox. So it just shows, yeah, we've got my graduate student Lindsay is working on a number. She's got a few completed, and oh, did I not? Oh, and then right now we have like 23 species that we simply need more occurrences for. So if there's a group that's helping us, then they can look at this list of species that we need more occurrences for, and then they can maybe help provide that. But so I'm really planning though on making all of this stuff available. We can now these models are mostly based on climate, but we can also put in host plant ranges on top of that to constrict it um, even more. And then, one big question, at least for butterflies, is how do we deal with subspecies? And I know that once you get into subspecies, you can just get lots of debate as to whether a subspecies or a variety is even accepted or not. And my attitude is it depends on what the end user wants. So if somebody has a smartphone and they're in Georgia and they want to know the subspecies, then we should at least provide that as an option in whether um, there's agreement or not. So Merrill, are there plans to integrate phenology? Oh yeah, so it's the same thing. We can, if we get good phenology data, then we can put a phenology filter in as well. So if you take a picture of something in August, then we would eliminate any choice of a species that looks like that only flies in April. Um, okay, multiple people are typing. Um, what about photos of naturally occurring hybrids from hybrid zones between sibling species? Well, yeah, I think they're of great interest. Um, and so, I mean, I like that because it's possible that LepSnap itself could help drive understanding the taxonomies better and coming up with multiple dynamic taxonomy, something that Nico Franz is really pushing, which I think is great. Yeah, and Andre says, and perhaps with larval instar phases as well. Well, um, we can get good photos of museum specimens, but some of the larval, but for larval stages, probably the best images are going to come from live larvae in the field, not from pickled specimens. And so at some point, yeah, I'd love to see larvae really, really integrated in with this. And yes, as Andre says, we can create specific categories for hybrids. Um, okay, I will move on. And so I think that's the update uh, for LepSnap and images. So I do want to talk about broader impact working groups because we really don't have any. And so I will just probably every meeting I will put a call out for people to participate in developing or participating in work groups. So right now we still don't have anyone but Ann Basham and myself to really develop LEP Explore, the education outreach, and that's understandable. I mean, the goal is to really come up with a plan by the end of the first year for people to really participate in that. LepSnap. So even though Andrea said that there's 15 people that have signed up, we really could use some very hardcore um, uh, uh, participants to help beta test LepSnap. Um, I do want to push how-to guides, and um, is Isa, yeah, Isa Betancourt from ANSP is on. Her microphone is muted, but I've met with her a couple of times. Um, she showed me, now I can't remember what the program was I saw, but she has a great voice and a great presentation, and she really wants to help make how-to guides. So she's, and our primary how-to guide um, mechanism is going to be through um, Camtasia presentations. So hopefully we'll start posting Camtasia presentations. It's essentially a program that records either video or screenshots. So as you're moving your mouse through a program, you can see the exact steps. So if we wanted to do a Camtasia presentation on batch uploading of images, Isa would simply just record her screen as she was going through the procedure for batch uploading. And if other people want to create Camtasia videos, if you're really committed and you're good, you have a good voice as opposed to my voice, which I think is terrible, I'd be willing to at least pay for the Camtasia software that you would need to make some how-to guides. It will also, but anybody can make YouTube videos. That's another great way to share how-to videos. Um, but if you're interested, let me know. Um, Taxonomy table. So even though we got a great update from the three Ps, Greg Pohl provided the update to the taxonomy of North America. The actual taxonomy table that we have in Scan is still kind of messed up in that it did provide all of the data that Greg provided us, but it also left a bunch of crap in there. And it would really be great to have some, one or two people that we can train. We can show them how to edit taxonomy tables in the LepNet portal, and to then have them sort of be responsible for curating that particular group of LEP adopter. If they wanted to take on like a single family, that would be great. And so Paul Oppler has been wonderful in providing taxonomic updates, and actually, so what he's done is provide lists from publications, and we can use that as well. So if somebody has done a revision and it's only in a hard copy um, PDF, if you wanted to transcribe that into an Excel spreadsheet that we can update, that would be great as well. So let's see. What different formats can you convert taxonomy tables to for download? Well, so Ben can chime in here, but what we need is like a very simple Excel spreadsheet. That's the format it's a CSV file that Ben uploads, but it's like 3 columns. Ben, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. It is a fairly straightforward download. It's more than 3 columns, but essentially, and I'm not sure if this is answering the question, but essentially to upload new taxonomy to LepNet or Scan, you simply need a CSV file, one column with the full scientific name without the author, another column with the author name, and year too, if you'd like to include that. Another column with the taxonomic rank, so whether that taxon is genus, species, or family, order, etc. And then one column with the accepted name for that taxon, if it is different than the name being given, and then one column for the parent name of that taxon. So for instance, if it's a species, the parent name would be the genus, or if it's a genus, the parent name would be whatever rank you want to recognize higher than genus, whether it be tribe or just up to family. I hope does that answer the question, Jason?
Jason has another question in the chat box.
I'm not sure if I understand that last question, Jason. Are we referring?
Well, if you get, let's say, Ben, if you get a list that have parentheses, you just strip those from before you upload them, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Parentheses should not, I mean, a taxonomic name should adhere to the conventional standard of taxonomy. My background's in botany, so we don't really use, so parentheses
Well,
aren't.
but you use them for the authors, right? You get them with the authors.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I understood. But yeah, parentheses can be used in the author column just fine. I'm not sure. Do the tables include one? Yeah, I'm sorry, Jason. I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question, but you can include parentheses in the author column. As far as the formatting, it's the upload process within Symbiota doesn't try to reformat the author string in any way. So pretty much as as you use parentheses in that author column, that is how it's going to be uploaded into Scan.
And we can provide examples of formats that we get, and then what the format looks like when Ben uploads them, if, as a model.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with the use. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question initially, but yeah, I know why parentheses are used. They can be included in the upload just as any other more normal characters.
Well, and Ben, maybe you can speak to this as well. So it is like the taxonomy table structure in Symbiota portals. Um, it includes synonyms, but does it include the ability to know right off the bat whether something was described in another genus initially? And already I'm thinking that we should probably have a separate meeting to talk about this.
Well, I mean, it's the tables in Symbiota. I mean, synonymy can be added to taxa within this Symbiota taxonomic system. Certainly, as far as, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question perfectly, Neil, but as far as tracking, perhaps you were asking if if there's any sort of chronological tracking of synonymy. So, for instance, what was the original accepted name, and then what has been more recent updates to that taxonomic understanding. Symbiota doesn't track that. So, I mean, there's just the taxonomic entities. They are linked to synonymy. So there's a taxonomic name. It's linked to a separate table which says if that is the currently accepted name. If not, what is the currently accepted name of that taxon? And there can be multiple accepted names for a specific taxon as well. Is that what you're asking, Neil?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And well, so Jason, I think if you Jason, can you talk? Um, it probably would be good if you looked at our taxonomy table that we have in there for Lepidoptera. Well, and the same would apply for Orthoptera that with OrthopNet um, to see what it does and does not do, and if there's something that it does not do, and we can implement it, and it doesn't cost too much, then we can consider doing it, right, Ben?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, we only have 7 minutes left. I want to try to make this a 1 hour meeting. I just want to emphasize again research priorities because if there are people that want to join with me and start planning for research priorities, I'd love to get a working group together. And so, one example is to potentially develop a publication on species co-extinction with their host plants just for Lepidoptera, and the word species co-extinction links to the co-paper, I think, in 2008 that talked about the importance of species co-extinction because I think that's LepNet can really speak to that very, very nicely. But there's lots of different things. As well as number 6, I think there's lots of additional broader impact things that people can work on. So examples are building LepNet participation to non-funded museums, and I've already pinged Catherine Daly and Derek Sykes for making connection with Russian colleagues, which they already have. I'd love to have people make connections with especially South America and Central America connections because there are taxa that we share in common. It'll be important for phylogenetic type studies, but also technological advances. If you have something that you want to share that makes things better, cheaper, I'd love to know about it. Oh, Greg actually joined us. Uh, okay, great. So yeah, hopefully we preserved uh, the most important parts of Greg's table, but we could actually also make his original thing. We didn't include everything, but I think with as long as the attribution is there, we should actually could make that entire table available to everybody. Um, okay, so because we kind of ran out of time, I'm just going to scan. Well, I'm just going to kind of skim over these last things, but one of them, I really, even if you don't have a live connection, um, I really would. It'd be great if people utilize the search capabilities that we have on the portal to, because we are even though you can get some of the same information from iDigBio or GBIF, I'm trying to serve all arthropod data from North America on our portal. And we've got 700,000 LEP records from the data from Jorge Sobron. We're going to add about 500,000 Mexican records in the next couple of weeks, so that you can easily do map searches for particular species or genera or whatever. You can develop checklists if you have a special park, national park or state park that you're working with. You can create Lepidopter checklists for that park, and we've got, I think, like 60 National Park Service arthropod checklists that National Park Service people use. So I would really encourage people to start exploring the portal for data that we already have. You can search images. So we've got 21,000 LEP images, 180,000 field images, and that's all from iNaturalist. And so we serve iNaturalist data as well. I encourage people to look at the statistics function. So it tells you by month how many images and records that your collection has put up. And I think that's it. So miscellaneous. Actually, as far as I can tell, it looks like Adobe Connect worked today fairly well. But I might still get GoToMeetings. We might switch to GoToMeetings instead of Adobe Connect for having these group meetings. I will, like I said in my email yesterday, I want to have some what I call scan meetings, and that includes everybody that works on arthropods, not just Lepidopter, to talk about issues that involve all entomologists and arachnologists, whatever. And like I said, we'll have some upcoming meetings that will be very focused on very specific things like LepSnap and LepExplore. And if anybody's interested, we have not really talked about this too much, but do have virtual seminars, and that's where two or more institutions provide credit for a seminar, and we have virtual seminars on anything covering ecology, phylogeny, or the integration of those, or any topic. And obviously, it's too late to do it this semester, but we can do something like that starting next fall. And iDigBio, that's one of the things that they want to promote, and I think that they can help us with that as well. So let me just go through the last two things, and then we'll end the meeting. Update NPM DSLR setup can image about a quarter of a drawer. Going to see how Select segmentation does with that number of unit trays on Friday. Okay, that would be great. And so yeah, maybe as early as next week, we'll have an update for people that have DSLRs that want to play with InSelect and the segmentation capabilities that it has. And then Greg is saying that he's working with Bug Guide. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Yep, and then we'll look into that about providing additional information. So, okay, if are there any last questions before we end this particular meeting? Okay, if there aren't, I'm going to stop the recording, and thanks for attending. And like I said, we'll have another general meeting next month, and probably at least one focus meeting. Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.